NIP trying to take that next step and figure out their identity, because Jamada, as the Kindred taken away immediately from Milky Way, so sign of respect paid to the prodigal son returning home as the Varus locked in B1 here.
Yep, B1 Varus, very strong lane. We know what it does. No matter what iteration of Varus you tend to end up with, there is one thing that is going to be for sure, and that is going to pretty much secure you bottom lane security in most ADC matchups 1 versus 1. And NIP, very swift rotation. You spoke about Shanji being the Rumble player. It's a classic. Why, if it's up, you know, why not just take it? Always going to be Comfort and Jin. Picked up by Leave. Not necessarily something that we'd always see out of Leave traditionally, but again, utility against utility, match the range, the engage potential is always there, and set up for that equalizer in the mid game is always going to be appreciated as RNG look to lock in 2 very strong frontliners.
Yeah, and that will be kind of, you know, that's always the controversy around Jin, right? What can you do in a sort of these tankier champions, right? What does the rest of the damage look like around a champion like Jin to where in the late game you can be Mr. RFC, hit one deadly flourish, and you land the root, and, you know, Bob's your uncle. The other engaged side of it, ppgod will be on Leona, so expect a lot of Zenith Blades, ladies and gentlemen. As we go into round 2 of bans, it certainly feels like these, you know, I don't know the mechanics of exactly how, you know, how accurate the time between a hover and a lock-in is because we're, you know, getting the other feed and whatnot, but based on just how quickly these have been locked in, it feels like both these teams came into game 1 with a plan.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, I'm liking, specifically to me, what RNG are putting down on the table right now. Solid, very, very consistent engage through the Nautilus. Galio as well in the mid lane, which can technically flex up to the top side. We've seen it plenty of times, right? And with the Rumble being locked in early, you actually expect that to be a Xiaoxu pickup, but still something that Tangyuan we know historically has been able to play, which just to me says, hey, Milky Way, strong invading jungler, lane prio out of Galio, probably going to get counter pick as well for the other solo lane, potentially, I suppose. It's not necessarily a confirmation, but with Galio being able to match basically either side, it's up to RNG where they want to place it. NIP, look over to them, everything locked in place, and they know, they look at these lanes and go, yeah, we're moving away Lee Sin, we're moving away Viego, we don't want to have to deal with these skirmishes, whereas RNG, remove away the Wukong, very strong team fighting setup, which is really where NIP are at right now. Again, long range, over the top engage between that Rumble, between the Jin, and of course the Leona. They don't want more divers, and RNG, we'll see what else they look to remove away. Maybe Jarvan, but when you've got Galio, it's not the worst thing to deal with. Corki is what they land on in the end, so just looking to trim away a potentially strong option into that Galio mid lane if they decide to field it.
It'll be interesting to see what they lock in for neny here, right? You've got, hang on a second. No, okay, we're not going to talk about hovers. neny, because he was a, you know, a role swap guy, right? He's been in the top lane, been in the mid lane. You look through kind of some of the champions that they put him on, right? To varying degrees of success, but he's always willing to play something a little bit different, a little bit goofy. Zyra will be what Aki is going to pilot here, so going to give him the reins a little bit. A lot of magic damage on that top side, though, Jamada.
Yeah, a lot of damage on that top side, and it does make me think that we're probably going to end up with this Galio in the top side. And Swain, something that has been played a fair bit since its changes, and I think in the upcoming patches maybe going to be touched down a little bit as well with a nerf or two. We'll see where RNG decide to go with their mid lane pick, as Tristana is where they eventually go, so that should be Galio up in the top side. And when you're against double AP, it does make a lot of sense. And again, for RNG, systematically just makes a lot of sense, right? Mid lane Tristana should secure priority in most matchups she ends up in. Now that just gives Milky Way the option to land on a jungler where he should have a good time matching this Siren. It's going to be that Lilia, so we'll see if there's going to be any early game invades, right? That's always where you're looking at Lilia to kind of edge out a lead, is when you've got that priority. Being able to invade off tempo is super potent, but against the Zyra who clears so fast, sometimes those windows a little bit difficult to lock in, as now we're looking towards NIP as neny is gonna take the Irelia matchup, which is not something you see often. That's gonna be really exciting in the mid lane. I can't remember the last time I saw Irelia mid, so goodness me, a little bit of reading might have to be done before we get into game, but my oh my, very explosive draft coming out from NIP in game 1.
Yeah, that makes 2 of us, brother. It has been a minute since I have seen the Irelia, especially in the mid lane. That's what we taken into the Tristana, and you talk about the 2v2s, right? We talk about, okay, look, for Milky Way, right, get something that can shove and roam, right? And you talk, like, Milky Way's going to be on these carry champions, right? But taking away the Lee Sin, you talk about the skirmishes, and that's really what you've got to focus on, right? Because that's how you push these things ahead. Lee Sin, okay, yeah, you can fall off a cliff in the late game, you become a bit of a one-button Boris, but the early game skirmishing around the objectives is just unbelievable.
And a massive amount of innate CC that's very easy to land. If it does land, things start to get really scary. So RNG definitely have to pilot this mid-jungle 2v2 very, very meticulously as we make our way into game number 1 here of day 3 of the Demacia Cup.
RNG NIP is the matchup that is kicking us off. We're so grateful that you guys are here. Whatever team you're here to support, thank you guys for being here and supporting this project, the unofficial LPL English stream. I am 4x4. That is Jamada. Let's get down to business. The ward around the chickens. Yeah, you saw that one coming from a mile and a half away, right? You know that that's the camp that's got a target painted on its back with a Lilia in the early going of things. That was never really going to be a question for anybody here, as JiaQi taking a little bit of blood out of Leave here. But we talked a little bit about how at the end of Milky Way season, you know, the AP champions didn't work out so great for him. The brand, the Zyra, that wasn't his style necessarily. The one exception to that rule, though, is the Lilia. That is a champion that he had tremendous success on. So, you know, he had his champ pool pinched, squeezed, strangled, if you will. But the Lilia still was able to be let through, and that is something that he has found success on.
Yep, absolutely. Milky Way. I mean, I feel like Lilia as a champion, she double dips, right, in that playstyle. Again, invading so powerful on those early camps, if you are able to catch a jungler in the middle of it. But that's where the Zyra really does kind of find its strength. As these trades in the mid lane, I imagine, are going to look like this a lot. It's going to be Neny maybe finds a window to kind of hop in on a minion, get a couple of auto attacks in, and then Tangyuan is going to answer that and then he walks back out. But returning to the jungle point, JiaQi's going to clear this jungle incredibly fast, right? That is the strength of Zyra. It's going to make it very, very oppressive. As speaking as oppressive, rather, Xiaoxu going to make his way onto Shanji, and this is going to be the trade pattern throughout a lot of that lane. Very difficult to really ever win out that 1v1 in those short trades.
Level 6 is, like you talked about, going to be absolutely crucial. Yeah, fighting into a composition that has the ability to flawless duet and stranglethorn you into oblivion, where you get caught in an equalizer as well. And for composition in what RNG have drafted, that is very divey. I mean, to be fair, both sides have your divey elements here. But Tangyuan, for now, keeping Neny at bay, the all-in, right, once you hit that level 6, that's the really big spike. In the bottom lane, it's leaving ppgod having the pressure right now. How do you expect the rest of this lane to go here with the Jin Leon? I mean, both of these are, you know, like you said with the Varus, whatever you kind of play, you have lane dominance, you have some lane control, but Leave can match range, and Jin's early base damage is not to be sniffed at.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why the Jin pick does make so much sense, and I think it's going to be a lot about first jungle move, right? And you think about it already, JiaQi full cleared down here, and Milky Way knows where he needs to be. He's here matching. It's going to be a little bit behind pace on that Zyra, but it's to be expected. Again, it's just kind of how a lot of these jungle matchups go, even if you're really min-maxing, as now junglers trying to meet here.
ppgod sees an opening. He goes in there with the Zenith Blade. Milky Way going to eat the Ignite, and First Blood will go over to Lee. Flashes and Ignites blown. ppgod will survive with a couple of pots. First Blood over to NIP.
Yeah, great timed flash by ppgod on the end of that exchange to not fall to the stacks from Varus, and a very, very clean and easy 1 and out from NIP. They do lose their summoner spells from Leave and ppgod though, so we'll see if a return can actually be had, because Lele still has his summoner spells, so flash forward auto attack, it's as easy as you get from that Nautilus, but still, First Blood goes into Leave's back pocket, and we'll see how they can look to extend that bottom lane 2v2 as we come into this replay. And again, it's just Milky Way prodding. Of course, they got spotted on the vision beforehand, so they all start to collapse, and just out of fog of war, JiaQi finds that route, and Milky Way basically dies in the CC. Flash again, really well timed from ppgod, doesn't get clipped by that last hail of arrows, and makes his way out, doesn't allow it to be a 1-for-1, and a good trade comes out from an IP.
So the first move was kind of by Milky Way, right? Like you said, he was poking and prodding, but he got caught out, eventually got punished for it. Scuttles traded as well, kind of on either side, so you're probably going to see the map being split here, just looking at the color of the vision that has been had on either side of the rift here. And Xiaoxu did blow his teleport as well. Yep, the mid laners as well, matching their teleports. But right now, Leave and ppgod. Leave does have that one crucial cleanse up, right? Jin extremely immobile, so having that one, yeah, you don't have your flash, but definitely not the end of the world here. If you can come back with a decent spike here, I don't know if he's got enough for a Dirk with that one kill, maybe, but that's the spike you're looking for to come back.
I mean, 5 minutes in, should do by now. It's just about actually finding that base timer. I'm not sure if Lele maybe held on to the wave, and that's why Leave has been stuck here for so long, but still, double buffs is going to enable him to kind of just keep this wave shoved in pretty much eternally, and it's going to be about the mid lane prior maybe for how these two teams look towards Dragon, because that's where I feel like both these teams want to try and get active on this side of the map right now, with the bottom lane sort of state the way that it is. Feels like that's really where you want to put your emphasis, and NIP, whilst they probably do want to focus on that bottom side, have to take that base because Leave had so much gold, gets himself the swiftness boots and that double longsword. So he's got those stats for now, and we'll see how RNG look to answer as those resets also come out.
Yeah, fair enough, right? It's not a Dirk, but the Swifty boots, pretty nice there on the Jhin. And Xiaoxu, crucially, right, maybe if he can get out of lane, right? The TP, the teleports aren't unleashed, but if you could get that hero's entrance down for something potentially on the bottom side or the top side, but NIP have kind of made their move here, hitting level 6 at the perfect time as Shanji drops the equalizer as Leave shows up from the bottom lane to the top lane, gets a Dark Harvest stack, but really not much else.
Yeah, it's a good lane swap, and it's great tempo here for Arky and NIP. As Lele, I think you've overstepped your welcome, mate.
Oh man, bit off far more than he could chew with that hook, doing his best ppgod impression, and as a result, NIP will get the grubs.
I'm your biggest fan, ppgod. Lele as sacrifices himself just purely for the love of the game. Nothing more you can really say about it. Xiaoxu's going to also have to step off that top side tower, and that's 3 grubs secured by NIP. So that lane swap you can definitely call a very strong success. RNG were not set up for that at all. And as they now match this lane swap, Leave and ppgod, they're returning to the bottom side of the map. So it's going to feel like Tempo Exodia for the next sequence of play also. But Lele just completely out of sync with where the rest of his team is. Milkyway is trying to get himself that final grub. It's just not really enough, as you could see, you know. JiaQi, everyone else, Tangyuan, they were all on the side of where Milkyway was nowhere near that enormous.
Yeah. Excuse me. No, not quite. And like you said, NIP, Tempo Exodia, very well said. Immediately getting their haunches back down to the bottom lane. Scuttle not spawned, but ppgod going to get some of that deep vision and make sure that Xiaoxu, excuse me, very much not the same player, stays put under that tower. That's going to happen to me more than once today, I promise you. But on the other side, again, RNG, they're not taking anything lying down here. They're going to get quite a few breaks here onto JiaQi, so not take anything laying down necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily, but again, there's no grubs, right? So that tower take is still going to be kind of slow. It will be for a dragon on the side of NIP, though, so not feeling too bad about it. Shanji is going to try and make his way underneath this tower. Can they 100-0 him?
The Lele redemption arc is on and very much off, but you did get the flash out of Shanji.
Equalizer in 4 seconds.
Yeah, you'll take that, but like you said, that equalizer coming back off cooldown. Does he use it on JiaQi or does he use it on the wave? Might be the question. He will try to get both. Porque no los dos, and he gets the solo kill out of it. JiaQi, welcome to the league, my friend.
JiaQi, honestly, mate, I respect it. I can't say much more than that. Go for that 1v1 dive. Lele wanted nothing to do with it. But Shanji, in the end, is able to make that turnaround happen. Gets the wave as well. On top of that, as Tangyuan goes in, has the ultimate, don't forget to knock Neny back.
Yeah, goes for the all-in, but the Vanguard's edge goes out and does pop Neny back from, or out of range, but Tangyuan thought about hopping right back into range. Yeah, both ultimates blown here. Both flashes still up, and both, well, two supports and a jungler kind of shading Tangyuan. Yeah, you would hate to get this Irelia accelerated, but, you know, already I got a kill on the board there. Did get that one onto Lele up in the earlier skirmish by the grubs. So you've got a couple of actually, I mean, NIP, all 3 lanes off to really good starts here. We're going to get another look at at what happened up in the top lane. Yeah, this is the JiaQi's welcome to the league moment, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Lele's just not really super committed to returning to make this dive happen, right? I mean, whilst JiaQi makes this dive happen 1 versus 1, Lele's just resetting underneath the tower, wants nothing to do with potentially killing Shanji, and Shanji, the level up as well. I'm not going to say it saved him, but it certainly prevented him from dying, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was plausible there, but now, immediately you see the lane swap, I think, taking a page out of their own book. As RNG send a couple members to the top lane as the grubs are about to spawn again. The timer's very much desynced, right? So you don't have anything to worry about as far as an objective trade, but a bit of a two-sided coin because you know that contest will very much be on. But the deep vision that was secured kind of as a result of that, I think by Lele and JiaQi, they've got that top quadrant of the jungle lit up pretty deep there, Jamada.
Yeah, they do. A lot of information is going to be handed over about the resets here. So maybe RNG can make something work here, at least a grub or two, given how strong their setup actually does look. Mid lane priority has been a pretty consistent thing throughout the opening 10 minutes of this game, as they're going to spot Shanji. They know he's lurking around, and NIP have that top side priority as well, so they're going to force through this side up here, and we'll see how RNG look to actually engage this fight, as last time around didn't exactly go their way.
Yeah, Lele is on a different part of the map, you will notice, but it is JiaQi that might be caught out here. He gets the equalizer dumped on him point blank. Shanji with a death wish against JiaQi kills him twice in the span of a few minutes. Tranquil Thorns go up, Hero's Entrance goes out, as well as ppgod gets set back to the gray screen. Not able to hit the W is neny on the Irelia, able to flash away, but into certain death, as now Tangyuan gets rolling. He's got the flash to go forward one more time should he want to. Can hop forward on that reset as well, forces a flash out of the NIP jungler, and leave will bounce, or excuse me, the NIP AD carry. Spell not going to land here, but now 2 for 2 traded here, as neny's got himself the Blade of the Ruin King, but it is NIP crucially that walk away with those grubs.
Exactly. NIP, they're the one that get the objectives here, as Arki is going to be harassed a little bit by the burn. And RNG, whilst the fight in the extended didn't look too bad, Tangyuan should be able to rocket jump away from this.
Yeah, no equalizer back, fortunately.
No, not just yet. And again, even though that fight didn't look too bad for RNG, just not being able to get the objectives, right? That's what really, really feels bad. And 6 grubs going to be absolutely detrimental to NIP to RNG if NIP are ever able to get on top of any towers, as JiaQi just gets absolutely melted by the ultimate and by a little bit of help from Leave, as again, a good catch out here onto ppgod. But again, if it's just ppgod dying, do you really care that much, as a whole bunch of CC falls onto neny's head? And such is the life of playing Irelia in such a circumstance as pro play, where there's almost always CC. And again, neny struggles a little bit, but you expect to see that. It's really on the side lane where you're going to look to expect him to really open out and maybe provide a little bit more for NIP. But as long as these skirmishes are going down, if he's not finding backline access, it's definitely going to be a bit of a hard game for him.
Now, before we kind of move forward there, Jamada, take me through kind of what happened there, because it felt like RNG did everything right to set up for those grubs, and then you look up and it's 4 red health bars in the river.
I mean, it's just how NIP decided to enter through the top side of the map, right? They recognize that Tangyuan just has complete freedom to do whatever he wants through the mid lane, so they force numbers through the top side, and RNG hadn't quite rotated onto the objective, leashed it out towards their entrance of the map, and because of that, just kind of very easily means for RNG, or rather for NIP, that they can kind of do whatever they want on top of that objective. And RNG not being able to pick out a member, right, proactively losing JiaQi at the start of that fight, really makes things difficult to navigate.
Yeah, losing your AD carry before a fight, that's just kind of League of Legends 101. Never going to go well for you. NIP, complete dominance on the Rift, man. I mean, 4 for 4 on the neutral objectives. And some of it has been their setup, and some of it has been just the little plays that they've made and what they've done immediately on the back of those, right? Their tempo has been phenomenal. You called it Tempo Exodia, and I would tend to agree. Dive coming in here, talk about the CC chain. My goodness, Xiaoxu, poor kid, doesn't get to play the game. Shanji, TP's in for the kill. How do you do?
Yeah, I mean, just making good use of the 6 grubs here. They're even going to be able to get this tower before that 14-minute mark, get the additional bonus plate gold. And RNG, they are matching this play here up on the top side, cross map, getting these towers. But again, you know, it still feels really bad. You're losing a kill, and you're even going to lose this tier 2, of course, which is just going to be even more gold. 250-ish split between Shanji, Leave, and Arki. Not bad at all. And even though RNG will trade out again, you know, another objective for another objective, the Herald being picked up. Given how RNG have approached a lot of these engages and these skirmishes so far, you actually have to be in a good position, right? Set up a whole bunch of tempo to get this Herald down and get a strong and solid use out of it. NIP been able to deny them at pretty much every turn so far.
And I think you hit the nail on something pretty important, right? using the Herald to kind of kickstart your tempo, more often than not, I feel like doesn't actually go all that well, right? If Herald is your tempo play, yeah, maybe you could force the enemy into an uncomfortable decision where they've got to make a choice between, say, a mid-tier 1 and a dragon, right? You see that pretty often on that third dragon in about the 18-minute mark. But to really make the most use out of it and really make that enemy decision uncomfortable, right? You've got to have those waves pushed out, right? And be able to play that map state so that the Herald is the cherry on top.
Exactly. And then, again, RNG's game state isn't really indicative of that being able to happen. We'll see how things unfold. Of course, League of Legends can always evolve and change on a moment-by-moment basis. That's why we love it. NIP, though, for the time being, 3,000 gold up, and very strong items being completed across the board. Double Leandries for Arki and Shanji, Blade the Ring King as well for Nenias. Despite having a very struggling early game with that Blade the Ring King, some may argue this is full build and we'll be able to find some pretty easy 1v1s now if he ever finds anyone in isolation. So we'll continue to track his progress, as we spoke a lot about that Herald and what RNG could maybe get done with it. It's just a mid lane tier 1 chunk for the time being. So
yeah,
nothing really that is going to be super meaningful in the immediate future. Of course, if they do start to find a couple of good fights, maybe that mid lane tier 1 tower is just a little bit easier to chunk out and take down now because of that.
And just looking forward at kind of what neny is able to do in those 1v1s, like you were saying, Jamada, that long lane in the bottom lane, it has got to be calling his name, right? I mean, between him and Shanji, right, you got two different players that are very well accelerated on an item and a half, multiple kills between them, actually 5 out of 6 of the whole team. And with the right setup, right, with the right TPs and stuff, it seems like this NIP roster, just on kind of experience alone, feels like it is outclassing RNG, right? They've got, they're still, RNG have an identity, but I feel like the experience is kind of where they're lacking right now. And NIP, I think we'll learn a lot about them and kind of what their floor is at based on how neny is able to play out these side lanes, especially with the 6 grubs, right?
Yeah, exactly. 6 grubs, again, very, very powerful tool, but it has to be utilized, right? It's through and through a win more objective. Whilst it's nice to always pick it up in the early game, it's not really that useful if you're not hitting towers. So we'll see how much work and then you can get done. You have to remember that bottom side lane has already lost all of its towers, right? Tier 2 taken in that earlier exchange for the Herald. So there's not really much for him to do other than actually knock on the door, right? Knock on the base of RNG, and we'll see how Tangyuan or Xiaoxu decides to continually match them and keep those waves pushed out. Great wave clear on both of those as shift our focus now to Dragon in 50 seconds time. Tangyuan, very aggressive.
Almost got nailed there by the solar flare. ppgod going all the way to the backline. Shanji, the equalizer from a screen away, and Xiaoxu shows up, but too little too late. He gets caught up in the Stranglethorns. The Vanguard's edge goes down. Depth charge gonna land on Aki, but that is just the escape button. Nothing much to do about any of that. 2 kills again over to NIP. They are having it their way right now, Jamada.
Yeah, and they're utilizing their composition so well as a 3-man sleep comes in.
milkyway gets a massive sleep. This could be the game changer they're looking for. It's milkyway doing milkyway things, but does the rest of the team have enough? Neny gets in, gets a kill, and gets the heck out of dodge. milkyway gets lit up, and on the other side of things, Lee from downtown snipes him down. It's an unofficial ace for NIP.
Ah, man, the turnaround play is so close to being perfect from RNG, but it's just not there. They don't have enough gas in the tank, and NIP stop them where they stand. Could have been an absolute game changer. RNG could have picked up that dragon as well off the back of that sequence, but we go to the beginning of the play. Tangyuan, just an over-aggressive rocket jump forward, and it's JiaQi that pays the price eventually, but the punishment comes through from Tangyuan. He gets basically every ultimate dropped on his head, and again, this is the power of the NIP engage tools, right? So much range between the curtain call, between the equalizer, but all eyes on milkyway. He sees 3 people extended too far forward for this tower. Flash, 3-man Q, 3-man lilting lullaby, a double taunt, but there just isn't enough damage in the end to take down neny. Life steal coming through clutch, and again able to flash away from that final Q. And ppgod picks his moment to flash forward and lock down milkyway so that all of this additional damage from Arki come forward, and a flash forward from Leave to secure that final kill in this sequence is absolutely incredible for NIP, as it feels like more people should have died on their side.
Yeah.
Pretty much start to finish.
Yeah, no, no notes. I completely agree with you. And unfortunately for RNG enjoyers here, NIP, they're just playing a kind of a solid game here, right? Milkyway, but this is what he does, Jamada, right? This is why everyone's so high on this kid, is at the drop of a hat, no matter the deficit, no matter what it might seem like. I thought RNG were just going to turn tail and run. We're going to get a third dragon, and then we're going to podcast for a few minutes. But Milky Way almost turned the dang game on its head.
Power of the Milky Kid, man. He is always looking for moments like those, and he's going to have to continually look for them. I feel like in a game like this, obviously you've got the engage from Lele, from this Nautilus, but you always want to try and find those big multi-man sleeps, so keeping our eyes on his flash cooldown, right? 2.5 minutes away from that. Zhonya's as well is going to be a second item, so I feel like he knows his role, right? Going Zhonya's second here, knows he's going to be able to dodge out on a lot of different damage and CC options, but of course gives him that opportunity to flash forward, get that sleep in, and then go golden just so he doesn't have to worry about any potential immediate follow-up. Give his team the opportunity to find plays as build up on our screen here from Leave, I believe. Has to be. He's the only Jin in the game, of course. Collector into rapid fire cannon and has that noon quiver in his inventory. We'll see what that third item will end up being for him. As NIP now in a very, very good position, over 5,000 gold up to just set up around this Baron, right? And look for repeat plays like they found on that mid lane. Someone overextended on top of Vision. Great. Drop a solar flare. Drop all of the ultimates on top as ppgod step too far forward.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the play. That was it. The Strangle towards the Equalizer goes out. My goodness, just so much choke point power. Curtain Call goes out. Despite what your graphics might tell you, the Jin ult was in fact used there. But Leave not able to find anybody. Again, you chunked out some health bars. Aki's still alive. No ultimate, so not ability to really control that space. But you're going to get something out of this, and that something in this case for NIP is that top lane tier 1. But again, just making this eventual Baron easier and easier to set up.
Yeah, you just continue to take down, pillars of safety for RNG, secure all of the vision that you can, and suffocate them out of the game. Make it very difficult to approach these neutral objective areas. And RNG have 2 minutes until the Cloud Soul spawns up. And whilst that, immediate thought, you might think, well, Cloud Soul doesn't seem super impactful in a game like this. Imagine the Rumble running at your face with all of that additional movement speed. Irelia being able to kite out, and just generally, again, with these ultimates being kind of cast from so far away, that movement speed, being able to close that additional gap off the cast is pretty valuable for basically every melee on the side of NIP here. And will make things significantly harder for RNG in these fights. Getting away from those melees is going to be very, very difficult. So ideally, you'd love to prevent it, but when you take a look at the inventories, you kind of just start to think, is it even going to be possible, right? Xiaoxu is still a little bit away from that second item, and his items just simply not really as impactful as Shanji's are for the Rumble. And again, across the board, as Leave also hits that third item mark,
man,
if JiaQi isn't going to hit the Muramana, it just feels like they're going to be a little bit outgunned in the inventory.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of dead weight, it feels like, in that third item. I mean, well, I mean, it's not actually that bad. It's 400 gold worth of dead weight. It's not all bad. But like you said, that Muramana is such a key item for the Varus. Yeah, you've got those 2 early lethality items. The spell shield into this composition is really, really important. I think he's going to get a lot of use out of that, whether he wants to or not. But on the other side of things, Jamada, you were talking about it. I mean, these 1v1s, right? You talk about the movement speed and the way that you could start a fight from basically a screen away. Again, I'm going back to looking at Neny and Shanji and how much do they actually have to play around, in these long lanes. We haven't seen a ton of action in that bottom long lane since it had really been opened up. All the action has been up on this top side, sometimes for better or for worse. But now, yeah, the Baron is that going to be that main objective here. But again, in 20-some seconds, you've got the Cloud Soul on the table. Not a necessity for NIP to get, but would absolutely be a boon in their pocket.
Fighting over mid lane priority right now, NIP and RNG are. NIP don't really want to give up position on this Baron, as a double swell seed does connect, but won't be taken. ppgod, you are dancing a very, very scary line, but look at Neny off on the side there.
Oh man, if that Zenith Blade, I was gonna say if the Zenith Blade landed, that was gonna be the go button, but Neny had ideas of his own. Pops that one, curtain call over the top, and the equalizer as well. JiaQi taken completely out of the fight, and now it's a 5v4. Should NIP want to pursue, but RNG said absolutely not. I would not want to do that. Why would I ever want to continue that? NIP turned their attention to the dragon.
I mean, still JiaQi's flash gone, and then of course NIP are gonna get this Cloud Soul, so Very good exchange and a great angle found by neny. Makes use of, funnily enough, not really being able to secure prio on that top side of the map. So makes the rotation come in, and again, RNG just have to retreat. So much damage coming out from Leave's ultimate as well.
Yeah.
The nip now with that Cloud Soul in pocket, gonna get a lot of work done. Just look, I really are walking around 457 movement speed with tier 1 boots, mind you. Doesn't even have tier 2. So
Wow.
that multiplication isn't even being factored in yet. Just that quick.
Yeah, that's you know, when you put it like that, that is terrifying. You talk about, you know, Rumble running at you at 400 plus movement speed. I've had sleep paralysis dreams like that, man. That is horrifying stuff. And I think that's kind of how, right? I mean, if you're Tangyuan, okay, you have the hop away. Maybe you can move in that sleep paralysis dream, but other than that, man, it's gonna be really rough sledding here. But everyone knows, right? That's the thing. I mean, you know that this long lane at the bottom it's a means to an end, right? If neny can get a pick there, right? Or conversely, if RNG can find a pick onto a neny or a Shanji, then maybe the fight around the Baron becomes different. But, you know, the long lane and now the top lane getting longer as well. The mid-tier one, the line of scrimmage being pushed back. It's all a means to an end for this Baron. NIP, with the lead that they've got here, almost 7,000 gold, plus the 4 dragons, plus the 6 void grubs. They feel like, it feels like to me anyway, after this Baron push, if they get the right fight, they could just end this game.
Yeah, it does just feel like for RNG, the biggest problem they're going to run into is if they want to try and stop this side lane push from happening, they're going to have to expend key ultimates to really lock down a member of NIP. Because, again, it just feels like the turn power of Shanji or neny to be able to, at the very least, take one with him is super high as milkyway chunked out, forced to flash away as well.
Yeah, he's out of the fight completely. Solar Flare going to land on a Lele on the Milky Way. Oh, man, he gets locked up and sent into the gray screen. The Zanyas ends up being his undoing. Big ol' shield comes through there from the locket of the Iron Solarian. It takes all that and more to eat through what Shanji is dishing on this Equalizer. And now to the Baron we go. That's enough. You got the jungler. Free Baron.
Yep, and then he's even going to teleport up here as well just to secure it. And NIP will get this purple worm. And it just feels like for RNG, I'm not even going to say time is running out. It feels like it has run out. I'm not really sure what more they can do with milkyway blowing his flash as well. It feels like the potential of maybe catching out someone from an IP or multiple members from an IP on a siege on a good timer just feels so unlikely as we come into the replay. And it's milkyway again caught out on vision. Has great positioning from RK, makes it very difficult to respond to the root, and gets rooted again by Lee from downtown, forced the Zonyas and then killed by this final bullet out of the curtain call. Has come out of the replay, and NIP return back to the map with the Baron buff. Expect them now to close in on the base and try and crack open at the very least one lane, one inhibitor. That'll definitely do for them, and they can look to retreat back towards the Elder after that.
You start to dot some I's and cross some T's at this point. Hullbreaker has come in. That's the third item that neny has gone with. Level 16 as well, feeling incredibly strong here. Jamada, what if you're an RNG enjoyer, how much are you kind of panicking here? Because this is not the Milky Way game that was promised. This is not the anything that was promised right now. Unless, I guess, your expectations are, you know, a little more tempered, let's say. Actually, we got to hold that question potentially here, as Lilting Lullaby does land there. The sleep goes off. Lele not able to land his hook. The Equalizer goes out and separates everyone completely away from Xiaoxu, who's doing his absolute darndest, but is getting meleeed by Shanji. Flashing forward, follows the flash of his own, and now heading for the hill, scared to death of a curtain call. Able to snipe Lele out of the sky. Doing a little skeet shooting is Leave, and now they're going to crack open that base, Jamada.
Yeah, I mean, again, for RNG, they just had to pick a target. Their target, unfortunately, was ppgod. And that was all they could really do. Scuffed engage in general just results in an IP being able to find the targets that they want in the response, and 2 inhibitors off the back of that from a good top wave and a wave already being present. This could just be the game with 6 grubs.
I was going to say, this looks like the ball game here. JiaQi trying his darndest to get something down here with the Blighted Quiver, with anything. Milky Way just taking damage from a screen away. NIP not opting to try and close the door just yet. Milky Way might have other ideas, and he decides to put those ideas back in the filing cabinet and save them for later.
Yep, exactly that. Not gonna risk another death for the time being, though. I guess it would have been on a good timer. Would have been up for Elder Dragon if you really wanted to be.
Fair.
Not the worst time to die, you know. But You can see RNG, the angle's not bad, right? But
yeah,
it's an ultimate expended onto ppgod, and then the turnaround dredge line from Lele just barely wide onto Leave. And if they're able to find Leave, honestly, maybe this fight looks significantly better, right? They can CC him down, but even in saying that, Shanji's equalizer does such a good job at cutting off a majority of RNG from advancing. And then look at the damage here, 700, 800 onto Lele. That's a tank, by the way, mind you.
Yeah.
One bullet, not even the fourth shot. Takes him out and, again, makes the fight unturnable for RNG.
Meanwhile, Lele, just as quickly as he left the gray screen, he has found his way back. So, he'll put his hands back under his thighs and just kind of sit on him for a little bit as the rest of his team tries to weather the storm here. Chains of Corruption does land there onto ppgod, but the equalizer prevents any sort of move forward. And guess what? Leave is level 16 to me. That means that curtain call is back in business. Xiaoxu sidesteps the last one, but Tangyuan crucially does not get hit by it. Neny, kind of pressure that he can put on with that hull breaker. Right, getting a little bit further away from everybody, but with the Cloud Soul, with these grubs, this is the final push. Vanguard's edge goes out onto Tangyuan. Hero's entrance comes down, trying to bail out the Tristana, but my goodness, just gets popped, deleted, sent into another dimension. Goodbye, sweet prince. Shanji doing a solo bolo thing under the tower. Lele gets back to the screen just in time to watch his teammates die. It's a very sad scene all around, except, of course, if you are a Ninjas in Pyjamas fan, as they take game 1 in dominant fashion.
Yeah, that was a stomp if I have ever seen one, and by the end of it, Leave was just popping bullets left, right, and center, getting kills with basically people getting like a fourth of their health just gone. So yeah, that Jin a little bit fed by the end of it, to say the least. And like you said, if you're an NIP fan, solid game to see your team open up with. And I'm not gonna comment yet, because, you know, one game, best of one, RNG. Also, it felt like the wheels kind of fell off after the early game. But, again, very promising looks here. We always knew individually that some of these members of NIP can certainly thrive. It's just about how well they actually work together. And this was definitely a good case study of, you know, being a believer. I certainly feel good about it.
Yeah, it seemed like everything just worked like it was supposed to. Right, this is a very kind of no frills, you know, no fuss sort of win. Even Leave, who I thought was going to be a bit of a passenger in this game, I thought the main characters were going to be the Rumble and the Irelia, and to be fair, they kind of were. But Leave, like you said, that was a late game Jin performance for the ages. After 20 minutes, this champion usually does not do things like this, but the way his team set him up was so nice. And like you said, RNG turned into a bit of a punching bag after the 20-minute mark. But still, you still got to execute on those team fights. And there were a couple angles that RNG found that NIP still had to have their wits about them. Hang on, we're going to close this out cleanly, do this the right way. Yeah, a lot to like. Like you said, one game sample size, but for NIP, you like the way that things are going. For NRG, is it just a wipe it, go next? What do you take it away if you are huffing the NRG copium?
Yeah, I mean, I think for RNG, I don't really have any major issues with, you know, the draft or anything. I think a lot of this just came down to execution, and to me, being able to try and recover from those grub fights, but also specifically the lane swaps, right? It felt like those early